Hello everyone, I'm Neverdot. Welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about a little bit of programming. Now, usually I'm drawing stuff or talking about games or fun things. Programming, I do find fun if it's, nice. And we're going to be looking at how to make a nice little bit of block of something on a website look nice on a normal desktop browser and also on a mobile screen without having to write massively different versions of the same page. How we're going to do that? Is it going to be complicated? Well, maybe. You will need a little bit of knowledge on how to write HTML and CSS, but beyond that, you don't need any additional information. Let's go. All the files in this tutorial will be available for download in the link below. Just go down them. You can go get them before the tutorial and just have them open while you're going through it and then pause and then try things out on your own as I go through it, or grab it later, watch it first, whatever you like. Hello everybody, this is Programmer Neverdot, and we're going to be looking at Jenny the bok choy on her farm. So this is not a full web page, of course. This is just a little bit of a widget on the web page, say. It's an example. So we've got a box and we've got Jenny's advertisement for her farm. Jenny's farm, come and visit it. She's got lots of turnips, little turnips, upside down turnips. Probably a farm should have more than that. Oh, she's out of stock of carrots, potatoes, everything, pretty much. Okay, so she just has turnips, and we see a little picture of the turnip there. Now, the point of this tutorial is to show you how you can turn this into something that works well when you scrunch it down into a mobile screen size. So this, if I just do that now, I'm going to show you also, we've got the code on the left, but we're going to shrink it down a little bit. It starts getting really scrunchy on the left there, the right, and it's just not very readable, and then it starts sliding out of the box, and that's terrible. And on a mobile screen you would see like Jenny and nothing else. It wouldn't work. Like even the fresh veggies are gone. That's terrible. Anyways, let's bring it back. So this doesn't work. Let's look at what we've got in our code. So you should be a little bit familiar with HTML and CSS. Know what a p tag does. It's not relieving, it gives you a paragraph. So I've put in some basic styles. We've just got the border box layout, which you really need to use for sanity purposes, because if you use the default, you go insane trying to keep things the size you told them to be. Also, we've got little star with the before and afters is just to get everything to obey that box sizing. Let's skip down to the actual structure of the page before I explain the different classes, of course. So we've got our farm advert, which is the main green box that you see there. Inside that, we've got Jenny, which is the image. And then right beside Jenny, there's this div element called the advert info. It's got Jenny's farm in it. The title there, Jenny's farm. The paragraph, which is Jenny's farm's text describing the pitch to why you should visit her farm and buy her turnips. And then a little yellow box that says what's out of stock. It has a little note which bolds the top, and then a list of every single possible thing she could have grown and planted earlier, but she didn't. Anyways, all of these things I've stuck a little class on them so I can refer to them later in the CSS above, and it's all just basic stuff, setting sizes and things. And I'm using Flexbox, so I'm not going to cover Flexbox in this tutorial. I will at another one, but except that what it does is it allows me to put two things side by side. Usually you would use floating layouts, but I don't want to do that because floats are very messy, and Flex is just amazing. So I will do a tutorial on Flex, but for this one, no. So the advert is the main box, and I'm saying it's flexing in a row, so that's horizontally. So Jenny's going to be on the left, everything else is going to be on the right because it's in a nice little div box, and that's going to get dedicated to a certain amount of area. And it's going to get 500, so she's going to be 500 wide all the time. That's why she scrunches everything on the other side when you reduce the size of the thing. And now, to improve it a little bit, you add a media query. Down here we have a media query. So the media query allows you to apply different styles when the browser width gets a little bit narrower. I mean, there's other kinds of media queries too, but this is the one we'll be using. So at 1,000 pixels, if we shrink it down, I don't know, nothing happens. Well, it gets quite large at this size, and then, shrinks down a little bit at that size. So you can see Jenny's farm, really big text. Weak. A little bit smaller right there. So that's a little bit, that's an improvement. When we get smaller width, one of the approaches to deal with that smaller width is just shrink everything down, make it smaller. Because usually you've got large, big fonts, you can make them smaller and still have them readable. So we've done that. That is not enough. That is nowhere near enough to get it visible. Let's move on to phase 2. Okay, so over there we have pretty much the same thing, and over here we've got pretty much the same thing. Jenny got a little bit smaller, but what I'm going to show you now is something very, very, very important for any kind of responsive layout, and that's what this is called, responsive layout. It changes per the width of the browser or other things. Images are a problem. Images are a big problem because they don't tend to do scaling very well. I mean, they can, but there's a better way. So down here, I'm going to show you something. Previously, I had an image. Now I've just got a div which says class advert image, and I have no image. So how is Jenny there, up there, but she's not in here in the code? Where did she go? It's magic. So I don't like having images in my layouts typically because I can't control them through CSS. In CSS, you can put an image in place by using a background image. So if we look at advert image, it's up here somewhere, right here. So I've transformed the previous image into a div, and it has a background image of freshveggies.png. Same one as before, but now it's being presented as a background image. Background image is set to be sized in a certain way to contain itself within the div element it's in. So it will always fit perfectly its parent div element. And even if it grows or shrinks, it will shrink as well, or grow. I've still set it to 500 width, so if we shrink it around, it's still going to do that thing of going messy. So that's not helpful. But this is a first step, because what I want to do is when we shrink it, I want Jenny to move over. And I'm going to show you how that's going to happen right now. All right, up there, normal thing, wide width, we've got normal Jenny with her farm, and it's not doing very well. But watch what happens when I pull it in. Ready? Da, 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 da. Watch closely, watch Jenny. Oh, ooh. What happened? Wait. What? She's away from the farm. Now she's getting snuggly and she's got the sign. What happened? This is a different image. This is not the same image at all. How did this happen? Do I have JavaScript? That usually requires JavaScript. I'm detecting the width maybe, and I'm switching out the background image. Down here we see same exact stuff. It's got the div with the advert image. Nothing there. Style tags. Nope. There's no JavaScript here at all. What's going on? How are we getting a different image? So we have the same thing, freshveggies.png, at this normal setting, but if we go into our media query, at 1000 pixels, we reduce the font sizes, but now we're changing the background image reference. And that's really neat, because at that size, at 1000 pixels, it applies these new rules, and one of the rules, because I moved it into being a div background image, we can now change it to anything. So I drew a different Jenny that's narrower, and that she fits better. So now, at a widescreen, you get a nice big farm picture, and at a small size, you have the fresh veggies that are squished together, and she's a little bit too close to the turnip, and she might pluck it out of the ground. So that's great. Now we have a much better responsive layout, and I can shrink it more. It looks okay, it doesn't look great, and now that looks bad. As I said before, since the background image is set to be a containing style of size, she will shrink down to fit her containing element, her containing div. She fits in the box, and she's shrinking as she should. But I don't really like this. At this size, it doesn't look good. So here, I like it. Here, great. But about around here, it's not really that good. It's around 600, 700 pixels. So we need to do something more at 600 pixels. Let's see what we can do for that. Oh, okay. She's back, and let's just see what happens. I've changed the code significantly. Let's pull it in a bit. So we got her widescreen. Now she gets narrow and tight. What is the only possible way I could fix this? I mean, I could make the text smaller when we get smaller. I could make the image, well, I've already made the image smaller. That doesn't look good. I could make the image different, but she's already kind of square. So, I mean, a square is the smallest in both directions. It's not going to improve things. what we really need at this size, and this is where mobile layout development comes into play, you need to think about the phone and the difference between the desktop and the phone. The desktop, you have so much space. The phone, you really need to conserve your space, and you might need to lay things out differently on the phone. This layout doesn't really work on the phone. So let's do something different. Let's move things around all over the place. And we can. And I'm going to show you how it doesn't really involve much in the way of differences in the code. So we're going to pull it in, and boop. Ooh. Now it's a little card thing. We've got Jenny off on the side, and she's popping out of her frame with the turnip, and the turnip's getting sold, it looks like. And we've got this thing, and it pops open. Look at that. I'm just pointing at it. Little thing slides open. Isn't that cool? So, wider and narrower. Bink. I've completely rearranged everything in this layout at this width. This is about 600 pixels. So let's scroll down to see, is this different? We've got a div here, same as before. Same. This is the same. The HTML hasn't changed, and yet I've accomplished a totally different layout of all the elements. How did I do that? Let's go peeky at what we've got for our media queries, because the media queries is where the magic happens. We still have the 1000 pixels media query right here. That still applies, but now at 600 pixels, we're going to do a few more rules. Now remember, these rules sort of apply as they qualify. So the 1000 rule 1 qualifies, it's running, it's applying, and the 600 gets applied on top of that. So I'm further shrinking the text in a few places. I'm removing some of the borders because here I have much wider padding around the edges, and I squish that down on the mobile because the mobile does not want 20 pixels of white space all around the edges because you're just not going to have anything. So we shrink that down, and we get the compelling argument has to get smaller. Yes, she needs her compelling argument. And now a few of these things are worth noting. So the stock notice, which is this yellow box here, whoop, it is now absolutely positioned. So absolute positioning, as you may know or may not, it allows you to take something and just jam it at a physical location on the screen and takes it out of the flow of the rest of the document. So everything moves as if it wasn't there, but it can go on top of other things and out of its normal position. So I'm just moving it to be 150 down, which gets it out of the way of Jenny's face, and then in about 20 because I want a bit of space from the edge. I limit it to 150 width because I want the ingredients, the little vegetables that she can't stock for some reason, to be that width, not to be covering the other side. And then, of course, I've got an interesting stuff going on here. So the note is this bolded stuff, the all out of these. And that's another interesting thing, because if I look down here, that note says currently out of stock, not all out of these. Whoa. Where is that text coming from? So, where is that text coming from, and where did my currently out of stock text go? And what's going on? So let's go back up to the note. So I say, font size 0. So font size 0 means that currently out of stock text is still there, but it's shrunk down to like nothing. So you can't see it. It's kind of hidden. Now I could have done display none. That would have hidden it, but I don't want to hide it. I want to change it. Because right after this, I'm doing note after. The after pseudo element, which you may or may not be familiar with, allows you to put new content right into the page in CSS, which is really neat. Content. This will inject a little bit of extra code after the note, at the end of the note element, basically, inside it, and it'll be all of these. So that's where the all of these text comes from, and it'll be set to 10-point text, because otherwise it's going to inherit the 0-point size, which means it's going to be invisible. So I've changed the text because that was a bit too long. Currently out of stock, was too long. Also, it didn't make sense when I couldn't see the ingredients, so I wanted to change it. So I've changed it with CSS. That's amazing. That's fantastic. I love that feature. And below it, the out of stock bit, which is right below it, out of stock, right over there, is right below it. So note out of stock. Usually these are span elements, and they should be in a sentence, not on separate lines. But I've changed them to be block elements. So block and block. So now they're going to appear on their own separate lines, because I want the list of ingredients to appear underneath, because I want to collapse it. So I'm saying maximum height is 0, and the overflow I need to set to hidden. If I don't set the overflow to hidden, all that text is going to display, even though it's squished to nothing. That's just the way it works. So overflow hidden allows me to hide all of that, which you don't see actually, it's there now, up there. How do I display it again? In that interesting effect. Well, there's two styles, and I have two styles here. Let me just put this on a new line. We have stock notice active, followed by out of stock, or stock notice hover, out of stock. And this is for the desktop and the mobile. I need to do both. The hover, of course, is when you point at something and hover it, it will trigger that and follow that rule, which allows me to set the maximum height higher, so this can actually render out and you can see it. So it allows a maximum height of more. Basically, it allows all of the content to show. The active one is when you click on something, it becomes active, and this would work on the mobile then. So on the mobile, if you tap it, it will expand, which is really cool. It's like a button, but without having a button. And you don't need any JavaScript. It just works in CSS. And if you hover away or tap on something else, it'll close. Again, no JavaScript. It's fantastic. Now, why did I use height or max height instead of height? I could have set height. There's a reason I didn't. So height 0 was fine. I can do that. But the height, I don't actually know. I don't know how high that is, because that text might change in future. And I just don't know what it is. And between browsers, it might even wiggle around a little bit because of the font sizes might be different, or a different font. So I just want to set the maximum height. So say I set the maximum height to be more than it needs, so it can just go up to as much as it needs. So it fits perfectly because I'm using max height rather than height. Height would have set it to exactly that, which would have been too big. Now lastly, maybe not lastly, this position relative I just need to set because I'm using absolute positioning, and absolute positioning is, as you may know or may not know, relative to the most recent relative parent. Whatever. If you don't set it, it's going to go way up to the top of the page, which I don't want. The image of Jenny is also being stuck up there with absolute positioning, and her size has to be fixed at a certain beep beep little size. And I'm using a different image again because I drew her again a third time. Fresh veggies, tiny. .png. So I've got 3 images it cycles between, no JavaScript doing that, and it's all just happening in the browser. I don't need to do anything. This little margin left on the advert info is that text on the right, the whole block containing it. And if I don't do this, I've got 2 absolutely positioned elements on the left there. And if I don't do this margin left, it's going to slide out underneath it. As you can see, there we go. That doesn't work. So let's put it back. There we go. Good. So now we have a great look at large size, and then it gets smaller, and then smaller. Now you might be wondering, how's that animating? Like I didn't have any, there's nothing in there that should be animating. And I'll show you a quick little trick. Don't recommend it. I mean, I do. But I've got this that I added, transition, all 0.3 seconds. The transition property tells it to change any numeric properties or colors or something like that are changed for any reason, like with media queries, will be changed gradually rather than instantly. Usually they would be done instantly and you just snap between different sizes, which we were having happen. This allows me to just gradually go between the different sizes, which is great. It looks really nice. You can slow it down. That 0.3s is how long it takes. If I change it to like 2 seconds, it'll be slow, kind of cool, but slow. So I like 0.2 seconds, 0.3 seconds. I'm pretty impatient. The all just says what properties it addresses, like height, width. You don't have to transition all of the properties, and they can be all different speeds if you really want to. And it can be different between different elements. For the laziness of this tutorial, I'm just adding it on the everything. Everything is probably not the best idea in the world because it might transition things you don't want animating. But it's kind of cool here. So if you watch closely, ooh, it's still on the 2 seconds. So we shrink it down. You can see it shrinks everything down. The font size is even collapsed down. And then when we go this, oh, it all floats around. And that's pretty neat, actually. So that's what the transition does. It's pretty neat. Take advantage of it to make your site look really cool and animated. when you aren't even putting any effort into animating things. You're just changing the settings in the media queries, and it animates for you for free. So here we've done changes in layout without any JavaScript, changes of images without any JavaScript, and animation without any JavaScript. It's all happening through CSS and media queries. And we all have the exact same HTML in all cases. So that's pretty nice. Now I hope you enjoyed this video and you found it useful for your own website development skills, and also see that you can get a lot out of CSS and HTML without any JavaScript at all. So much that you don't need to do that heavy thinking with regard to JavaScript and all the complexities that entails. It also is very reliable because it's CSS and HTML. The browser is taking care of most of the work for you. So you just sit back and watch the magic happen. So until next time, see ya. Hey, what are you doing wearing a different shirt? You always wear the same thing. Yes, I know. This is my programming shirt. It's different. I realize that, and I hope you all can deal with it. Are you okay with that? Is it okay if I wear a different shirt? It's not going to break the internet? It might. It might. Now don't forget that the files in this tutorial are available in all their versions in the link in the description. And also, I wonder why Jenny is growing turnips. Is she eating them? Like, I don't think she should. They're alive. Like, her friends are a turnip. Whatever. See you next time.